President. This is a first reading, and maybe for the new board members, no action is required until you take the second reading, which will be at the next regularly scheduled meeting. But I would like just to be able to offer some comments because it relates not only to these two ordinances, the first reading, but also to the budget, which is based on the savings that would in fact be reflected from this. Several things. One is that we had 5 open houses where there was a chance on the initial proposal for service reductions, where a chance for individuals to come in and learn more, to be able to interact with staff, to be able to express their concerns. From those comments, and you see them summarized here, we ended up making numerous modifications to that proposal that then went to public hearing. The public hearings, there were 3 of those. I attended limitedly, 17 downtown Portland, the 2 others, 4 and 7 individuals testifying. But even from those, we additionally made changes to the proposal that was first modified from the open houses to the changes that were made after public hearing. And we have attempted, knowing the budget crisis, obviously, that we're facing, $27 million below what we need to be able to maintain service. We made a number of adjustments at that. Let me just summarize those very quickly. But what I think it's important, the message is that I think sometimes people say, oh, they've already made up their minds, nobody's going to change. And that's said oftentimes about different government. I think it's really reflective of the approach we have taken to be able to really hear those changes and concerns and try within the budget constraints we have to address them. Specifically, we ended up, from our final recommendations, we included revisions and proposed changes to 18 of the bus lines and all the MAX lines. We have made changes. One of the ones that had the highest level of comment was on the line number 65. Right, not too far behind, was 154. What we have continued to do is to be able to continue with the existing schedules on those lines with some changes in the schedule, but the service being preserved. On lines 32, 45, and 80, we really continued it on weekends because we heard from people who said, I need that to be able to get to education or to jobs. The spans of services were altered, some on it as well as a couple of other lines, but it was important. We heard a lot from it, and you probably have seen some of the correspondence around what's called the Arlington Loop. In the Gladstone area. Likewise, as we heard from both Clackamas County that provides essential services in a new structure in that area, as well as workers who utilize that, we were able to restore that using a different bus line, but to essentially extend that service. And from Clackamas County, a concern about whether or not if they expand their service or their social services that they're providing, will we work with them to be able to make sure our service reflects that, and our commitment is, yes, to work very closely with them if they expand later in the evening for their services or even expand on to Saturdays. But at the current time, our expanded service off the number 34 for that, it has been able to be addressed. One of the other areas we heard about was the serving the Nimbus job area. Board member Van Beaverton has heard this as well. The concern was that the line 43 we proposed originally to be able to reduce that to the Nimbus area because of low ridership. We have been able to keep that, and I may come back to a broader comment in a minute. Overall, 11 lines also we retained the time of the first and the last trip to be able to really allow people to be able to make that job or get home from it, although we have had to certainly work with whether or not that schedule would remain the same throughout the whole day. We did make adjustments in that, but to be able to maintain that first and last trip. Lastly, we also looked at what I refer to as the Challenge Save watch list. And that is a number of services we felt we're just very, very low ridership. And although we propose to go ahead and continue with them, it is with creating a partnership with both those riders, with the businesses nearby or educational institutions to say, we've got to find ways to be able to get that ridership up, and let us work together to do so. Because if not, they have to remain on the watch list because it just are very, very few people using it. And so our effort, whether it was on the Line 43 Nimbus loop or others, we wanted to be able to make sure that we really had a chance to be able to address that, but in partnership with businesses. For example, another one is the 48 Cornell, and I won't go through all of these, but 48 Cornell, we heard from Netflix, who is moving a number of their operations from California up here, are hiring, which is something that not very many businesses are doing, and they operate 24/7. Their weekend is really the middle of the week because people want to get their movies for the weekend. But as a result, they need service. We have accommodated that by making challenges by keeping an early morning and evening trips off of that, but also to be able to preserve Saturday service in a way that will also address their shifts. All of that said is these are ones that is the challenge saved. That is, we're going to preserve it for over the next number of months, but that we have to work in partnership with those employers, with the riders and others to be able to get them up to a level of productivity that is commensurate with our other service lines. So I want to be able to give you that. No action taken today on the ordinances, but the budget that you will take up in a resolution does reflect those challenges because of the reduction. Lastly, although you've heard about it, there's a summary of both the public comments there as well as those on the ordinance as well. Be happy to answer any questions.